3, 2, 1. What's up, y'all? What's good? Here, welcome my guest. Here is Eric J. Velasquez. He's a local candidate here in San Antonio politically, and I'm very excited to ask questions and welcome his voice and what the voice is representing here in San Antonio. And also, I'll let this be the trampoline into a thought that wherever it needs to be. Really, anyone, I know that there's going to be listeners not in San Antonio, but perhaps may have family and friends in San Antonio. And the lens I want to invite is, if there's a message that resonates with anyone outside, and there's a knowing of someone here in San Antonio, let's start there. What part of San Antonio?
As far as like where the district is?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean it's weird. It goes from like 1604 Judson to Selma to Randolph Air Force Base to the entire south side of Bexar County, and then all the way to Lytle. So,
hey,
yeah,
that's some space. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, without further ado, this is Eric J. Velasquez under the Libertarian ticket. And off of that, right off the bat, what comes to mind for me, and I want to make the floor available to you. How did that decision come to play, especially in today's era, with the information, what's going on over here on this side, and it's like, how about we just think locally, what's going on here, and how can I better represent the people around? How did that decision come about for you?
As a libertarian, I mean, it came up super quick, actually, because of the fact, well, it works both ways. So
yeah.
It went slowly because I met my wife, and keep in mind, I went to Burbank. I grew up on the South Side. We never talked about politics, but throughout my whole, I don't even know how I took 27 years.
Congrats, by the way. Congrats.
Yeah. I'm saying 27 years of life. I never talked about politics or ever spoke of anything about politics. Right. Mm-hmm. And I just never knew about it. And not until I met my wife, which was in 2010, she's a political science major. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's a political science major. And so she's the one who's been the influence of how politics works and things like that. And then so is her family as well. My brother-in-law, he's got I don't know if it's a master's in poli-sci, but it's, political science. He's got a master's in it. So, I mean, the conversations in the households, when we get together, that's what it's all about. It's about politics, even on Thanksgiving and Christmas.
And how long has that been going on? How many years would you say that's been an every time kind of situation?
Since day one.
So what year was that?
7 years.
7. Okay.
So in 2011, when we really started to hang out with the family a lot more and everything.
Interesting.
And actually, my bad. Around 2009 is when it started, because we were together in 2008, and so we've been together for 12 years. But this will be your 10th year being married. So it's just been a conversation like that, and I just felt, I was like, man, I don't want to be outside the loop and not have something, nice, not have something smart to say during these conversations. You know what I mean?
At least a lens of perspective versus it's just another language. It's like imagine hanging out with a bunch of musicians. I'm a musician myself, and if we start talking shop on the chords and this and that, what I hear here is this and that, and if you're not a musician, you're going to be like, this is alien to me. So in terms of in terms of what's talked about in the family,
right?
Ooh, what a great way to get you into the door of what's going on, and congratulations to you for making that decision to step into that realm of what essentially what could be another life instead is now in the public eye, in the community's eye, in the I see you out there, I should say to anyone viewing, I found Mr. Velasquez very interesting because on my Instagram, I saw him kind of pop in. I was like, hey, what's going on? Because I've been posting stories every day, and you know, he shares feedback with the things that I post. You know what, on that topic, I'm about to ask you, you know, what comes to mind of the things that I've talked about. And well, you know, it's just so cool to watch your campaign have continually unfolded across the community. And I'll say this, what comes to mind when you see my stories there? I know they're very much out there, and I'll let the people see through your eyes.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, yeah, it's different. But I like your message of positivity and trying to say, look, just it's in a sense of motivation. And I know you speak to a couple of people. I think you go to Orange Theory a lot, right?
Yes.
So I'm like, is this the same story from before? Is it, you know, but I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's a different person you're interviewing or you're asking the question. But you know, I think it's great, and we need more positivity like that. You know, especially with how everything, so much negativity. And I think we just need to bombard people with positive, or even just thinking outside the box or thinking outside of their normal realm and gaining a new perspective. So that's what I like.
Would you say
that's what I
that's
try to do?
On that thread right there, would you say that because, you know, anyone jumping into the lens of running a campaign, you know, the thought that comes to mind is like, okay, well, are we in the Republican side of values? Are we in the Democratic side of values? Where is our family history? What's our people? You know, who do I want to represent? And then to make the decision of libertarian, to me, you're welcome to correct me if I'm wrong, or if I'm off track or towards it. What it makes me think about why you chose libertarian. I'm very curious to hear. Is it because of how information has played a role in what is Republican even mean nowadays, and what does Democrat mean nowadays? And I'll leave it there. I'll let you help me untangle that.
In my eyes, both of those parties are the same. It's the same two-headed monster, or dragon, if you want to say. And I think about it that way because both sides offer you this supposed, you know, realm that you want, or you're trying to feed you, but the end result, it's still the same monster that's eating away your finances by taxing you to death, or by creating these programs that aren't helpful, or they're not useful because they're government entities. And from my experience, especially with just talking to people, the government screws it up so bad. Even though they're trying to help, they don't do it the right way. They don't ask the people who are on the ground. They don't ask teachers, maybe, hey, how should we do this? No, they don't ask the teachers. They go to the superintendents, and the superintendents, they might not really know the day-to-day ins and outs. You know what I mean? It's like that's like the government telling you, hey, how do I play the trumpet? You know, or how do I play this instrument? Or no, actually, no, this is the way you should play this instrument. Yes. You know what I mean?
Here's the manual. And
right. Yeah. And even not even then, not even just the manual, just say, look, these are the guidelines. This is what you have to follow, because we've set up this program for you, and it might not be beneficial for you because, you know, so that's what I've learned.
I'm curious what comes to mind through the lens of why is it something that, in your opinion, in that it's that lens of getting that message out to someone, say, okay, what I'm trying to say is there certainly are people anywhere in the country that will vote across the party because that's what they've always done, and perhaps that's it. And there may be an unawareness of, like you're saying, you know, the statements that are being said is, you know, we're being screwed over by, you know, I'm putting those words out. We're being taken advantage of. Pardon me. We're being taken advantage of with our taxes, with you know, representation. I'll just do taxes, right? and there may be an unknowing of that. Why do you think that unknowing is as such?
Because the media is the biggest thing, and on top of that, just the way the laws that are written. So the laws that are written right now make it extremely difficult for third party, fourth party, outside party candidates to even run to begin with. And they do that because they don't want that competition. So for example, the Republicans just recently, last month, they sued the state of Texas to remove all the Libertarian Party members off of the ballot. And the Democrats sued the state of Texas to remove all the Green Party candidates. So they were like, all right, I'll take this side, you take that side, and we'll just knock them out to get rid of the competition. That's what I'm saying. They're the exact same people. They just say, well, we're under this. And keep in mind, I've met some people that are in those parties, and they don't hold those values, so to say. Like, I don't know, like there are some genuine people in there. But to me, I feel like they don't know all this stuff is going.
The depth underneath,
right.
Even though the values that they may be supporting either side, there may be underlying things that need to be voiced that otherwise would not be by being pushed out.
Right. They're just seeing it from, skin deep, basically.
Well, if I may, share this thought. The thought that comes to mind there's two threads in just the justification of, it makes sense to, let's get the Libertarians out of the way. Let's get the Green Party out of the way because, man, we really don't know what's going to happen between, as a whole, within who's going to take the majority in terms of representation. Is it going to be Democrats? Is it going to be Republicans? So how it would at this moment, one side may say it makes sense to get them out of the way just so that we can have a sure, there isn't dead weight.
So you're saying you rigged the system is what you're saying.
Yes. And it's like, I could see why someone would want to support a rigged system. And now do I support that? I really, this is the first time I'm hearing of it. So I'm just exploring out loud. The other one is, well, that's kind of the point of freedom of speech, to have conversation so there's no need to rig, and so that information can get to people and they can decipher for themselves, and perhaps, what would be a Republican or a Democrat win could actually become a Libertarian or Green Party win, should the information get to people. And I think the underlying question under that, and you're welcome to reframe, is, well, it's how does it get across? Medium. What's the medium?
So I mean, if you look at the way the media, and I actually just posted this yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but yeah, it could be Express News or a major news station or a small local, news agency. They still only post these two parties, even though they can see the ballot. They can see that there are more than just those two candidates, but they still choose to only do the two because it's not newsworthy to get the other parties, right? And so that's been a struggle with me, just being like for example, I emailed TPR, Texas Public Radio, and I go, are you going to highlight our race at all, or at least put us, maybe do a candidate forum? They're like, no, we're not going to do one. Like, okay, well, what would it take to get on at least a candidate forum? They're like, well, you have to be newsworthy is one of the words they said.
So you got to wreak some havoc somewhere,
Yeah, you have to
burn a forest or something. All right, let's talk.
Right. Yeah, you have to raise money. You have to have a campaign headquarters. I'm like, well, how much money and what's considered newsworthy? And it's just things like that really, it gets me upset And that's what makes me fight even harder, because there are injustices, there are voter choice oppressions, because it's not just a two-party. And, you know, everybody's like, well, you guys are just complaining a lot, but it's like, but you don't realize what we have to deal with, you know, and what hurdles we have to keep jumping. For example, I ran in 2018. We didn't have to pay any fee, right? You just go in, you sign the form, you turn it in. I ran against this really well-known Republican. He's been in politics for 25 years, and he had no idea he had a candidate because he ran unopposed. And he came out to the last event and realized that he had an opponent. And then I actually got a decent amount of votes. I had 51,000 votes. And so it was kind of like you know, and coincidentally, the next year, the Republican Party put a bill in that said, okay, well, now third-party members have to pay a filing fee, which is $750 for my race, just to say, I want to put my name on the ballot. Run.
What a little hurdle to just...
and the thing is that now Democrats and Republicans are saying, well, you just have to follow the law and just pay it just like we do. Cool. But the only thing is that when we pay that money, that goes to the state of Texas. When the Democrats and Republicans pay that filing fee, it goes back to the party. So we don't get that money back. So it's a fine. It's a fine that we get because we're not in the primaries. We're not allowed to be in the primaries. And yes, they also said, well, you can collect signatures, but the thing is that whoever signs that signature on the petition, they cannot vote in a primary. So yeah, it's just it's a mess, you know? Yeah. So it's just
interesting. So you know, so I guess the two thoughts that come to mind, and I'm curious what your reflections are of that is, one is, well, you know, that, you know, the system is rigged and, you know, we have, there's no, that you see, this is why we don't have a chance. Another thought is, you know, whatever the resistance may be, as monumentous as they may be, one thing for sure is present that never existed, especially, you know, within the paradigm of like, okay, it's always Republican, Democrat, and it's a Libertarian or the third party, whoever it is, that the playing field in which information can be distributed, not necessarily will it, right? You know, no, that's never guaranteed. Hence, people sharing. Imagine if, you know, all 52,000 people that voted for you. By the way, once again, shout out. That's excellent, man. Imagine if all of them made sure to share, you know, your campaign, your links. Imagine everyone for sure did that. Certainly, that would make, you know, I could only imagine the kind of impact in people's willingness to listen to that voice and make a presence in turnout, right? I guess my point is, and I'm really cluttery there, and you're welcome to help me clean that, is the factor of the internet, something that never existed in human history, as far as we know it, right? That such communications, rapid communications, which is also reflective of rapid polarization, you know, whatever information gets to you first, you know, is what will be the impression that will more likely, not definitely, but more likely be imprinted. And even if it's incorrect, should the second wave of information finally reach, now there is either bias or a fair resistance concern. And I'm curious what comes to mind with what I'm trying to explain there.
So, I mean, the Libertarian Party was created 50 years ago. So it's not that long. And there's never been a Libertarian elected into Austin. Never. So one, I have to cross the hurdle of media, right? And information and lack of information to people. And two, I'm running against these two machines, which people have been reminding me. And then three,
and shall they continue to remind?
Right. Yeah. And I'm the extreme underdog because, again, no libertarian has won an elected office in Austin. So, I have all those factors against me, and I'm Hispanic too. So I'm a minority. So, I mean, but the thing is that,
well, I'll go to, I have a question on that, but keep going.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, those are set up against me, but that's why when I do post on my social media, I'm just trying to post resources for people and trying to do it a different way rather than the same old political season that always happens. You're having attack ads, to your opponent. You're having, just buying a bunch of advertisement. As libertarians, usually libertarians try to spend the less money because we are fiscally conservative, and we just try to get the word out, but that takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort. But like with social media, I've been just hitting social media really hard and just trying to outreach to people and talk to people and everything. And I think that'll work, and people will see like your actual character. And just like, you asking me to do a podcast, there are a lot of other candidates who would be like, no, like it's a waste of time. But it's not a waste of time, because if it matters to you, then it should matter to me, right? I should be able to take the time out and say, look, I will talk to you. I'll whatever perspective there are, because if not, then you're not going to be willing to listen to anybody else if you have that closed-mindedness. And that happened to one of my friends that went with me to a forum, and somebody was like, who's that? And they're like, well, I'm just I'm a voter, but I'm also an influencer. And they're like, no, thank you. So just that it's trying to
a paradigm shift that's making its presence that is not being recognized through a lens from not just lockdown, but certainly before internet was really a such a reality that now we can recognize from my perspective, being born in the 90s. I still remember what that was like, traveling with maps and no GPS and getting lost for hours, and that was normal. And watching kids as a teacher, watching these kids, all they know is access. All they know is the availability. All they know is the great stimulus of information, perspective, and just beautifully packaged information that was once for me the equivalent to at 7:00 at this program on Wednesday, and 6:00 Central there's going to be this awesome production that's going to come on Animal Planet or Discovery Channel or History Channel. And that was at the point, and if you missed it, well, you missed a whole month, because it's not going to be replayed unless many people watched it. And it's like, what? I wonder the effects in which even these couple days into November 3rd, what that means for the eye, the public eye, the quickness in the way the eye may navigate the waters of lights.
Well, here's the thing is, that's why a lot of these politicians buy signs and advertisement, because they're expecting the average person to not read up on them. They're just expecting them to just see and remember their name or their face right before going into the polls, right? And so my thing that I've always tried to do is, hey, I'm here. Please ask me a question about my platform. I want you to know who I am, and I want you to, if you like it, great. If you don't, that's fine. You don't have to vote for me. But I always want to just give that information to people so that way they know that they're not just voting blindly. And it's the same thing that when I was doing like the food box drives and everything, people are like, oh, well, thank you for this, and I'm going to vote for you. I'm like, no, don't vote for me because I'm giving you something free. Vote for me because you agree with my policies and my stances. So that's the biggest hurdle that we also have to jump through, because we're smarter. We're smarter than that, and I
we have more access than that before,
right? But it's nobody wants to take the time to do it. And that's why I'm just trying to give on it. Like in the back of my flyers, I have like a voter resource guide. Like, hey, go to this website. It's a voter resource guide. You can look up your candidate. I don't care if you're not even in my district. Take it. At least you can have it, and you can find out about the candidates in your ballot. Like, it doesn't matter.
The thing that comes to mind with what you just said there, and I'm curious of your reflection there, is, I can't help but to wonder, is it because they don't want to? And my thought to that is, perhaps is it likely that they just don't know how to? So the thinking of accessing that information is framed within the mind as, I don't want to, but it's actually that if they just knew, they actually would want to, but the knowing of how, and I don't know how to thread that, but that comes to this thought. So, in terms of, I'll just say this one thing, podcasting, like for me, that's been a big source of information. And when I talk to people who are like in their 70s, that the accessing of such information, or of information of the likes of podcasting, is so unfamiliar to them, respectfully. And instead is through radio, it's through television. You sit at 6 o'clock, and when I watch younger generation, there is a normalcy, and I know how to ride this bike of accessing information on the drive, while I'm cooking, while I'm cleaning, that kind of thing. Pardon my extension there, but what comes to mind there?
So, I mean, there have been, when I do speak with some voters, I'm like, ask me whatever you want to ask. And they're like, I don't know what to ask. No candidate or politician has ever come up to you and asked me to ask them a question. So there's that lack of information too, that
to know how to ask.
Right. And what should I ask, or what does your position even do? And so I feel like me as a candidate, going into this, I need to bridge that divide and say, okay, well, look, what are some of the issues you're facing, right? Or these are some of the things I want to focus on. And then that'll start to get the ball rolling. But the thing is that a lot of people don't bother to do that because it's going to take time and, whatever it is.
Well, what are your thoughts on this? Imagine asking the kind of thing like, hey, if you're to find out that this is true, how would that make you feel? I was like, whoa. I would be upset. I don't want that. I'm not going to vote for that. Well, just so you know, that's on the ticket over here. That's been on the ticket for these years. And would you be curious to see my proposal for that? And I wonder what they're, how can we fix it? And then I could, for like, what's it something like, for example, I'd be curious. Let's talk policy in terms of what you're representing, what's on your ticket. What have you constructed that people, if they found out, if they only knew, they'd be like, oh my gosh, why am I not voting for this guy? Like that kind of thing. What comes to mind that for certain that isn't in so much in the radar, and if it would be thought provoking?
So the biggest one is campaign contribution limits. So right now, there's no limit to the amount of money a campaign could get, right? So there is a limit per person, but there isn't a limit to how much you can get. So all this money that it's flowing through a campaign contribution could be coming from corporations, could be coming from, private donors, but usually it's from some people, some entities that have an agenda or have something that they want to get done by somebody in office, right? So what I've been telling people is, look, we really need to put a campaign contribution limit because one, you'll probably get rid of a lot of these signs that are all over littering our city. But two, and I'm not really saying federally, I really mean like locally.
Like just because encourage conversation.
Right. Because federal, I mean, you're looking at a huge landscape. And to me, like I can't even visit my whole district, in a timely period. I don't expect one person to find the whole state, you know what I mean? But the thing is that if all this money is flowing into these campaigns, then that really opens my eyes and opens people's eyes as far as like, well, why are these people getting so much money? And what interest do these corporations have for this person, or what are they trying to push? You'll see. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm curious what your response would be to someone that may suggest, well, I don't really care. Maybe that person from a donor, maybe there's a good reason why they're donating because, if they have that much money, they might be good at something. So they should get that money. And, I'm going to vote for that person anyway. What would your response would be to someone that may feel that way, that yet if they heard something that was proposed by yourself, that may even like that concern that maybe not for them, something that certainly would attract that eye in terms of like, oh wow, that certainly pulls my eye.
The biggest one is property taxes. As a libertarian, we're strictly opposed to taxes in general already. So we don't even want property taxes, income taxes, because that's taxation is theft is the biggest, that we always say it's taxation is theft because you're having the government take money out of your paycheck every time. And then for Social Security, and people on Social Security they don't have enough money when they get older. Whereas you can put that money into something else that can grow a lot better than a Social Security. And you know what I mean?
Is that along the lines? Is that along the lines of like I had this conversation? Shout out to TC Apprentice, by the way. I saw you guys have conversation. That's great. Super sharp guy. Roy is super sharp, and one thing that he brought to my attention in terms of where I don't know what part of town in San Antonio he lives in, central east, I believe. Yeah, south side. Yeah. Okay. Local, right? I'm from Laredo. Shout out to Laredo. And I've been here now for 3 years, so I'm getting acquainted through the music scene. One thing he brought up was what's that word when people move into a neighborhood that is gentrification, and there's two kinds of perspectives there. Is like, well, the value is being raised, more money is being pumped into that particular area, and the other side is, well, people who are living there that don't want to live, and that's the culture that they want. And now the prices of taxes are draining their living, so they're being forced to move out and sell their homes. And am I right along those lines of what you're saying about taxing?
Well, yeah. I mean that is your property taxes. So and that's something that I do focus on my social media is, when that comes around, when property tax season comes around, I push on there. You can fight your property taxes, and you have to fight your property taxes every year. If not, your value of your home is going to get higher. And the misconception is people are like, well, don't I want the value of my home to get higher? Sure, but only if it's done through a private appraisal. The Bexar County Appraisal District have nothing to do about selling your home. All they're doing is just figuring out tax-wise how they can tax you all they're doing is looking at the outside of your home and then using Google Maps to see if you have a pool in your backyard or a shed right? That's all they do. So
really?
anything that's anything that's internal inside, or there's paint peeling on the side, or you have a hole on the side and they can't see it. They don't know any of that stuff. So they're just going to appraise it by what other homes are selling around your house. And if you don't fight those taxes every year, it's going to keep going up in increments of $20,000 every year. And people will get taxed out of their homes. Like, for example, I was talking to somebody when I was doing some block walking, and she was like, I'm getting taxed $4,500 a year. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot, but the thing is that they don't tell us is we can fight our taxes, but we have to do it a certain way. And the way they do it, it's intimidating, because you go in there, and if you don't like buying a car from car salesmen, this is what it feels like. So right off the bat, it already puts people in an uncomfortable position. And if you aren't good at like haggling or like explaining your case, so then you're not going to get much done. And so when I went in there, I brought my taxes down $23,000. It's only a matter of $500, but that's $500. Yeah. So my house was evaluated a certain amount, and I was able to bring it down. I'd be like, look, this is wrong. This is what's wrong with my house. This, and this. You don't see that? They're like, okay. And I brought it down $23,000, my evaluation of my home. And so it's a difference of $500 savings, but that's $500 I can go back in my pocket. You know what I mean? And so the thing is that what happens is, if you don't do these every year, you're going to keep raising, you're going to keep losing money out of your pocket, and it's just going to keep happening. So the fact that nobody else does it, as a norm, other houses in your area that are next to you are going to keep getting higher. They're going to say, well, this house next to you is this amount, so it's fitting for your neighborhood. So that's why,
So there could be a misconception that, I'm selling the house for a lot bigger of a price, so I'm making bigger bucks. Yes. So it's like would you say it's a conflict of incentive? Yes, you are making a bigger buck, and the other side is yes, and now everyone else is those who perhaps you don't know. You respectfully, it's a neighborhood that you didn't grow up in. It's just a house, right? You're not trying to do that. Let's go for it.
Yeah, and super important is, whenever you sell your house, they're not going off the Bexar County appraisal pricing, your evaluation. You have to get it appraised by a private appraiser. And even if you get your house appraised by a private appraiser, Bexar County doesn't know that. They don't have access to that information unless you tell them. So regardless of, you're like, well, I want to sell my house and it's good, it's higher, you're not getting anything out of it except more taxes, and then more taxes for your neighbor or whoever else is going to get into the house.
Snuck in.
Yes. So it's super, super, super important. And we don't talk about this stuff. And that's why I try to.
Like, for me hearing this, like, I don't know to ask that question. And I appreciate you breaking that down and allowing me to try to, construct some frames of thought and perspectives so that can be filled with more crystallized, proposals that can offer clarity for someone that wouldn't know to ask, and instead is basing it off of, well, I always vote blue, or I always vote red. I'm a businessman, so I vote red, or whatever it may be. So thinking in terms of, what are the ramifications? What are the outcomes? What are the benefits? What's the philosophy behind, the ticket that you're representing? Certainly it can be misconstrued as, oh, it's just that party that, whatever. It could just stop there, instead of, no, there's deep clarity that perhaps others may not know to want to gain further insight from, and perhaps even cast a vote. And ultimately, isn't it a vote really the spreading of a message from, when you put the ballot in, it's it's just one, but we're social creatures. Social media, I'm sure we can all recognize that our kids don't know the month to month. Hey, so what's the movie out? What's the movie of the month? What's the latest movie that's coming out? That's our generation. That was normal, and perhaps the internet is playing a factor in the reshaping of what is Hollywood again, and in terms of how we gain access to information, such as what you essentially helped unpack just now. So thank you for that. What else?
And so as whenever people ask me about the party, I tell them, I say, I'm here for the people. And as cheesy as it sounds, because you hear from all these other candidates, like, I'm here for the people. Yes. But the thing is that as a candidate, I see behind the scenes of these other candidates, and I'm just like, man, if you guys only knew how these people act or how they are, like, some of them they are bound by chains by their party because they can't talk to somebody like me because I'm not in their party, which is stupid. If you can't talk to me because I'm in a different party, then what makes you think you're going to talk to me when you're in office? You know what I mean? And so it's things like that I see.
That was deep.
And I see these things, or I see the way some candidates are. Like I had somebody come volunteer with me the other day, and we ran into a candidate, and we were kind of talking, and she came off really rude, and she also came off really rude to my friend that came and helped. And this is the first time I met this guy that came to help me. So he was like totally not even, this is his first political thing that he's ever done. And so he meets this person. She gives him a super nasty attitude to him because he's not a constituent. But how do you know? How do you know if he's not going to be able to vote for you? And he's like, are you serious? Did she just talk to me like that? Like I'm a piece of crap? And I'm like, dude, like some people are like
so it's
this.
Like what gets to be incited, like the insight that we're able to gain especially when there's a misconception such as that. What comes to mind for me is, how anyone does anything is how we do everything. And should it leak out in either just seemingly justifiable or totally flat out, totally missed the mark in terms of perception, and yet this emoted in terms of that, did she really talk like the to the point where you remember it that much in your tone, that I wonder how much of that is very vital for you to certainly, share that kind of, well, here's where they're coming from. Here's, I'm not here to talk smack for anyone, but for your information, these funds are coming from here, and my funds are coming from here. And sure, I may have donors here and there, but of these donors. And and you know what? Something I want to bring up that you mentioned about, foreign donors. Were you familiar with what happened in 2018 between? I may have read it wrong, but I'm curious to kind of gauge your memory with this. Between, was it LaHood? No, there's a judge. I think it was a judge. Between LaHood and Gonzalez or something like that, and LaHood, made essentially acknowledge this very same thing that you mentioned, that where is this gentleman coming from in terms of these funds that suddenly appeared that were in I think it was $1 million that's suddenly appeared. I may be butchering it. Does that ring a bell?
So, I mean, I don't know if it's the same one, but there was a huge controversy with a telecommunications company that was donating a lot of money to campaigns. And that list included Ron Nirenberg, Joe Gonzalez, Javier Salazar, Chico Rodriguez, like everybody. Even the Congress people, like they all had like maybe $1,000 in each one. But he had a contract with the city, or he was going to get a contract with the city. So it was kind of like I'm going to contribute to your campaign to give me some good, presence to say, oh, well, I donated to you, so maybe you can do me a favor, so to say. And even Ron Nirenberg said, well, I'm going to give it away to charity because I don't want anything to do with it. Whereas like Javier Salazar get like $35,000 from this person. And, he was just like, well, I don't know if it's illegal, it's not illegal to do it, to get this, So it's just things like that you see. And I don't know if it's really dealing with Nico.
That raises concern. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely raises concern, but definitely you shouldn't have people either running for a certain office and then having a side business that are getting contracts with the city. So like, I think, for example, there's some supposed like rumor that Trishna Berry for Precinct 3, she has a company that's trying to get like a contract with the city, and it would be too convenient for her to be on the commissioner's court, and her having this, it's a, what is it called, where it's a I forget what the term is, but where I forget what the term is.
Okay. Oh, what does it represent?
Like a conflict of interest.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
So yeah. So I mean,
because of the convenience of
her being on the
outside of the political realm on the personal life.
Right. Well, being in the commissioner's court and being able to approve a certain vendor and it's her business or things like that, so it's things like that.
So you dive in deep. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and we should really look into this, and it should be illegal for these people to do this stuff like that. And I'm not saying that's what she's doing. I don't know. That's
or at least full disclosure.
Right. But
and you know what? Perhaps the Libertarian Party, and you know what? Perhaps fair enough. You know what? Maybe that's just the way it's gonna roll out. And thank goodness, because of the internet, there is a lane where such availability of awareness can be possible, and the crafting and figuring out on how to share that onto the masses that would value to know. That lane that never existed is now in existence. And hey, granted, you know what? It's a dirt road. You know what? It's in the middle of the woods, and it's certainly not paved, but you know what? It certainly is available. And I'm curious how much of that perhaps maybe the role of a libertarian ticket to find out the normalcy of like, here's my platform, and just also here's all the things that I know about my opponents, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I won't do that.
A, B, C.
I won't do that. Just because it's not my place. That's not who I am. And I want to get away from that whole it's just politics stuff where, you throw stuff, into that to say, well, this is what this person is doing. It's just not going to make things any better. You know what I mean? And so,
well, I'm
my
curious,
thing is that,
could it be
and
a
I
matter
actually met one of my. Go ahead.
Oh, we may have disconnected.
And I
there we go.
Here.
Yeah.
Okay. And I actually met one of my opponents, and we just had a good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. I met one of my opponents, and we talked to each other, and we were like, hey, look, regardless of who wins, I think we should still collaborate after and we can help this district even more by just collaborating, because after all the things that we've seen and things like that, and that's how it should be. But you have a lot of candidates and opponents that will, and you have a lot of candidates and opponents that will bash you and play the stupid political drama stuff,
Well, what are your thoughts on this? I'm curious, within the lens of not framed as I'm trying to attack, is perhaps could it be possible that should there be attack onto yourself, and which would, with the fullest of respects as a response, well, as a matter of fact, I'm not trying to bring anyone down here, but, people might want to be aware that these funds happen to be crossing from afar or from, this source. And if it concerns you, great. If it does not, that's also fine. But at least for those who it would concern, that information is available if you are not aware. I'm curious what comes to mind on that. And of course, nothing has to even be, I'm trying to attack. It's, like you said, the system is systemically set up so that the message of a libertarian isn't as readily available, unless, like they said, how can I get into the ticket? Well, be newsworthy, was it? Was that the word?
Yeah. I think that if I had somebody ask me about it and they would want a response, then I would give it, but I wouldn't actively seek it out, just because it's not who I am. I don't want to go down that route. Yes, we're all human, and we all make mistakes, but
we're all trying to figure this thing out.
Right. I want to just stay down this path as much as I can, so that way I don't want to fall down that stupid rabbit hole. It's a rabbit hole when you start doing that and you start, entrenching yourself in the dirty politics. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
Right.
Well, I want to be different.
Anything,
I want to.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I think there's delay, so pardon for our listeners.
Oh, sorry. I want to be different. So I want to be able to say, look, this is who I am. This is what a libertarian is, and I'm not going to go down that route. And hopefully people can see that genuineness. And I just want to break that cycle. So.
Wow. Well, I want to, before we conclude thank you for your time. Thank you for your time for coming out here. And I know you're a busy man. We've been trying to find a date, and you're on the road, and I respect your time. So thank you again. Before I ask a concluding question, where can people find you? Your Instagram, your social medias, go for it.
On Instagram, it's Eric J. Velasquez for TX House 118. And then Facebook, it's Eric V for SA. Or you can just look up Eric J. Velasquez for Texas House of Representatives District 118. And then Twitter is Eric V for SA. Eric V. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Well, thank you. And once again, everyone listening in, you are invited, especially if you've listened all the way through this point of the video. You're welcome. I invite you to hit that subscribe button, smash that like, just to cast the net of our gentleman, Mr. Velasquez, so that I may have the availability of viewing of such message. And of course, there's a notification bell should you want to receive more information within our conversations. You're invited for future conversations, and let us know what comes to mind below. The concluding question: It's like an offering. I wanna invite your offering of help, especially through the lens of information distortion, confusion. If anyone's watched Social Dilemma, I'm talking about. If you're not familiar with Social Dilemma on Netflix, I want to make a very heavy plug here. Certainly how we access information is not on the unbiased realm. There certainly is a self-generating bias embedded into the system. So once again, social dilemma. Mr. Velasquez, what can you offer? What thoughts come to mind that may offer any listener to welcome within their hearts a willingness to detach from a conviction of this is how I think and I've always voted like this, or this is how I view it, and of course, and towards a willingness to look at the opposition to the point where you would even favor the opposition. Along those lines, what comes to mind that may offer our listeners?
The biggest one is John Adams once said that if our government becomes too powerful, just only two powerful parties, it will not be good for our country. And it's not the direct quote. There's a direct quote specifically. You can look it up. I forget what the specific.
No, I get you. The paraphrase. Yeah.
Right. And so, but the thing is that I always tell people to question everything. Question everything. Wonder. Always peel back the onion and see what else is behind, and keep peeling and see and go deeper and deeper. Because look, if you can go and on YouTube and you can go into like 6 hours of videos because you're like, man, I just went down this thing. But same thing with politics is you just keep learning more and more things. And every time I've talked to people, they're always like, wow, I didn't know that. And that's something that I've learned myself, just being in the position that we first talked about. Is I didn't have anything to say during these conversations. But once I started peeling all these layers and finding out more and more, I get invigorated with trying to do something about it, and just spread the message of, hey, start looking at this stuff and see why we're doing it this way. And I look at different perspectives from everybody. I've looked at total right-wing people. I've looked from total left-wing people. I look from people that are like socialists, and I'm just looking at all these different point of views, because I want to see where everybody's coming from. And if we don't allow ourselves to do that, then we're just going to be stuck in this narrow bubble type of atmosphere that we're not going to educate ourselves. And so just being open to everything and looking and coming up with ideas and solutions and thoughts, and kind of like how you're doing is just, you're offering this place of observation to just say, I never knew that. Or like we were talking about property taxes, just figuring out there's so many things that we can learn, that we're always going to learn something new. And I think we should always be open to it and not allow ourselves to shut down and say, well, no, I know everything about that. And until we do that, then we'll start gaining a better mindset, and then also just embracing everybody and just loving each other as just a fellow brother or sister, because we're not that much different from each other. We're just not, there's a lot of similarities that we can have with each other, and a lot of things that'll connect with us. And I think we've gone away from that. And the establishment of the government wants that because they want control over us. And that's something that those are my words.
Yes, I hear you. And, once again, I want to give a special shout out to your wife for making those, crocheting, was it?
Yeah,
crocheting those headphones. He was telling me earlier that she has a hobby of crocheting, and she actually crocheted the headphones. Like, wow. Thank you for bringing that on. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good day. Woo!
Thank you.